some places in Minecraft only used to exist.
In the last episode, we followed a seed from the moment it was born to the world it built. We ended on a question. If you walk far enough, where does the world end? Tonight, we follow the other edge of that world, the place where the math, after a long walk, runs out of room. If this is your first visit, take a moment to subscribe. There's always a place for you at the fire. And the way that math runs out is the subject of tonight's story. He walked 14 years to reach the edge of a number, 12.5 million blocks from spawn. Not from the edge of the world, from the center of it. From the place where a player first appears. 12.5 million blocks of plains biome, then hills, then forest, then plains again, then more plains, then a thin strip of ocean, then plains, 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 until the world thins out into a kind of fog. It is not a trip, it is a country. If a player walked 10 blocks every second, never stopping, it would take them 14 days to walk across a country that size. Walking it the way a player walks Minecraft, carefully, with breaks, with side trips, takes years. 12,550,820. That is the number in one direction. 12,550,820 in the other. The two numbers are the same. A player can reach the place by walking either east or west. 25,101,640 blocks of math, total, before the math runs out of room. The world, by then, is no longer a world. It is a thing the engine is trying to draw with the wrong number. Here is the reason for the number. The math that draws the world uses a 32-bit float. A 32-bit float is a small, fast way of holding a number. It can hold about 2,147,483,648 possible values in either direction. Past that, the number becomes a kind of placeholder. The math does not crash, it does not error, it just becomes less specific. The grid spacing grows, the noise function starts to drift. The world, drawn at the edge of the math, looks like the world is being stretched. Past 12.5 million blocks, the stretching becomes the entire landscape. Past that line, the world is no longer a place a player can walk through. The blocks become solid. The terrain becomes a wall, a single continuous unbroken face of stone stretching from horizon to horizon, from the bedrock at the bottom of the world to the sky limit at the top. There are no caves through it. There are no tunnels. The wall is the entire world, viewed from the side, like a player has walked around the edge of a piece of paper. A player cannot walk through the wall. A player cannot mine through it. The only way to keep walking east, past the wall, is to dig straight down and then dig straight east in a thin tunnel under the world until they pop up on the other side. The first time a player reached the wall, the community called it the Far Lands. It was a name for a place that should not have existed. The terrain in any normal Minecraft world is varied. Hills, valleys, oceans, forests. The wall is none of those things. The wall is a single perfectly vertical face of solid stone, taller than the clouds, taller than the build limit, taller than the player's ability to see the top of it from the bottom. The first player to find the wall was a player named KurtJMac. He was walking east in a series he called Far Lands or Bust in 2011. The series was a way of giving the walk a shape. The walk had a name. The walk had a goal. The walk had a number. He did not know at the time that the wall was not the only wall. He did not know the wall was the result of a math overflow. He just knew he had walked 12.5 million blocks, and the world had stopped.
To keep walking, the community built tunnels. A player who reached the wall would dig straight down, through stone, then dig east in a thin 1x2 tunnel at y=11, the standard mining altitude, for several thousand blocks. The tunnel would emerge on the other side in normal terrain. The world past the wall was the same world, just shifted. The math had overflowed, but the math had not crashed. Some of the tunnels are still there. They are the only record of the journey that survives in the world itself. A player walking the FLoB route today can duck into a tunnel carved by a stranger years earlier and walk through it. The tunnel is 1 block wide. The torchlight is dim. The stone is the same stone as everywhere else. But the tunnel was dug by someone years ago for a reason. The wall in some places is not a wall, it is a ledge. The math that overflows does not always overflow evenly. In some places, the wall is tall and continuous. In others, the wall is wide and flat, a single horizontal platform of stone stretching to the horizon. And on those platforms, at the very top of the wall, balanced on the broken math, villages sometimes generate. The villages are not placed there by any code. The village generation algorithm assumes a flat piece of terrain, and the wall is, in places, a flat piece of terrain. The algorithm does not know it is generating a village on top of a math overflow. It just sees a flat surface, and a flat surface is where villages go. The result is villages on top of the world. Villages that no player was ever meant to find. Villages with villagers who are unaware in their small voxel way that the ground they are standing on is the edge of a number. In 2011, the world generator was rewritten. The new version, Beta 1.8, was faster, more varied, and produced biomes that the old generator could not. The release notes did not mention the Farlands. The release notes did not mention the wall. The release notes did not mention the tunnels, or the villages, or the math that overflowed. The new generator did not have the overflow. The new generator clipped the world at a smaller number in a different way, and the Farlands simply stopped generating. They were not removed on purpose. They were removed by accident, the way a side effect is removed when the code that caused it is rewritten. The place was gone. Most of the players who had ever seen it did not know it had been there. But the Farlands were not all gone. The Beta 1.8 rewrite fixed the math in 2 directions, east and west, north and south. The rewrite did not fix the math in the 3rd direction. The rewrite did not fix up and down. The y-axis, the vertical direction, the direction of depth and height, still had the same 32-bit float with the same overflow in the same place. y=30,000,008. y=-30,000,008. The vertical Farlands, as they came to be called, were overlooked in the rewrite. They were not discovered for 7 years. In 2018, a player found them. In Java Edition 1.13, the vertical Farlands were patched too. The Farlands in Java are now fully gone. They have been gone for 8 years. Most players will never see them. Most players already had not.
His name was KurtJMac. He was a software developer. He had been playing Minecraft since the early alpha, and in 2011, on a server he ran with friends, he decided to walk east. He picked a direction. He picked a starting point. He decided that he would walk until he could not walk anymore. The series he made of the walk was called Farlands or Bust, FLoB. The format was simple. A player walks east. The player presses F3, the debug screen, to record the coordinates. The player streams the walk. The walk becomes a record. The first F3 press was at x equals 0, z equals 0, the first block from spawn. The next press would be at x equals 12,550,820. The walk, in other words, was the walk to the place where the math runs out of room. The walk was the FLoB. The walk was a 14-year walk. He walked 14 years to reach the edge of a number. The walk had landmarks. The F3 press was a tradition. Kurt would press F3 at the start of each major leg, the 100,000th block, the 1,000,000th, the 5,000,000th. The press was a way of marking the walk on a world that did not otherwise change as the player moved through it. The world was the same world. The blocks were the same blocks. The only thing that changed was the coordinate at the bottom of the screen. Players who followed the walk, the FLoB community, the FLoB subreddit, the FLoB Discord, left their own markers, stone buttons, single block towers, oak signs with a name and a date. The waypoints are not part of the world. They are part of the journey. If a player walks the FLoB route today, they will find a single button on a stone block, in an empty plains biome with no explanation. The button is the only record that someone was here on this day at this coordinate, walking the same walk. A button is enough. The walk took years. The first year was 2011. The second was 2012. The third was 2013. The walk was not continuous. Kurt had a job, a life, other things to do. He would walk for a week, then stop, then walk again. The streams would happen on weekends. The walk, in terms of in-game distance, was very slow. The F3 presses accumulated. The first 1,000,000 blocks took about a year. The second 1,000,000 took about 2 years. The walk was not a sprint. The walk was a slow, patient, decade-long accumulation of small walks. By 2020, the walk was at about x equals 7,000,000. By 2022, x equals 9,000,000. By 2024, x equals 11,000,000. The remaining distance was smaller than the distance already walked. The wall was, by then, a year or two away. The community followed. The streams were quiet. The streams were a player walking across an empty biome, pressing F3, walking some more, and then logging off. The format did not change. The world did not change. The only thing that changed every year was the coordinate at the bottom of the screen. Every December, the FLoB community held a FLoB-a-Thon. A FLoB-a-Thon was a charity stream. Kurt would stream for 12, 24, sometimes 48 hours straight. The format was the same: walking east, pressing F3, talking with chat, walking east. But the FLoB-a-Thons were not about the walk. They were about Child's Play, a charity that provides games and entertainment to young people in hospitals. The FLoB-a-Thons raised money. The first one raised about $4,000. The fifth raised $30,000. The 10th raised $80,000. The community had a counter on the FLoB subreddit. The counter ticked up every year. By 2024, the FLoB-a-Thons had raised $400,000. The walk by then was not just Kurt's walk. The walk was a community walk. The walk was a charity walk. The walk was a way of turning a 14-year trip to a math error into a thing that helped people. The wall, when Kurt reached it, was not just a wall. It was a wall with a hospital wing paid for, a games cart delivered, a young person who had something to play with during a hard year. The wall was the end of the walk. The walk had also been the thing. On October 4th, 2025, Kurt reached the wall. The stream started at the usual time. The walk was at x equals 12,550,400 by the start of the stream.
about 400 blocks from the wall. The chat was calm, the format was the same. The walk in terms of biome was the same. Empty plains, cubic fog at the horizon, the player moving east at the usual pace. The first sign of the wall was a faint warp in the air. The blocks ahead did not quite line up. The grid spacing in the distance was visibly wrong. The chat noticed. The chat started typing. Kurt walked. The wall in the distance became a wall. Kurt walked. The blocks in front of him became solid. Kurt walked. The wall became the world. He stopped at x equals 12,550,820. He pressed F3. The coordinate read out. The chat typed the same coordinate. The stream ended 14 years and 7 months after the first block from spawn. The wall was, in the stream's final frame, a single perfectly vertical face of stone, taller than the clouds, taller than the build limit, taller than the player's ability to see the top of it from the bottom. The place was where the math had said it would be.
The numbers were the story. 14 years, 7 months. 9,864,725 blocks walked. 78.6% of the distance to the wall, with the rest dug through tunnels by the FLoB community and Kurt himself. 11 F3 presses at major milestones. $400,000 plus raised for child's play. 1 Guinness World Record for the most distance walked in a video game. The numbers were not the point. The numbers were the way the walk had a shape. The walk was not a vague journey. The walk was a series of specific, countable things. Coordinates, F3 presses, FLoB-a-Thon totals, charity dollars. The walk was a record, kept in numbers, of a thing that did not have any other kind of record. The wall, when Kurt reached it, was just a wall. A face of stone in a plains biome at the edge of a number. The numbers, the 14 years, the 400K, the 11 F3 presses, the Guinness record, were the thing the walk had been for. The wall was where the walk ended. The numbers were what the walk had been.
A few years ago, a player opened a thread on the Mojang feedback site. The thread was titled simply, "Bring Back the Farlands?" The thread was a petition. The petition was a way of asking the developers of Minecraft to undo the patch. The thread was, as of 2025, several thousand posts long. Most of the posts were players who had never seen the Farlands asking for the place back. The Mojang team in the thread has been polite. The team has explained in long and careful posts why the Farlands were removed. The team has explained the math. The team has explained the rewrite. The team has explained, gently, that the Farlands cannot be brought back without breaking the new generator, and the new generator is what most of the game's players are playing on. The thread is still open. The posts keep arriving. The Mojang team keeps responding. The wall in the thread is a polite disagreement.
Was it a bug? The players who walked there, the FLoB community, the players who built the tunnels, the players who left the F3 monuments, say no. The Farlands, to them, were a feature. The Farlands were a place. The Farlands were the most interesting thing the math had ever produced by accident. The Mojang team says yes. The Farlands were a math overflow. The math overflow produced an unintended terrain shape. The terrain shape was a bug. The bug was fixed. Both of these are correct. The Farlands were a bug, and the Farlands were a place. The bug was a place, and the place was a bug. The distinction is the kind of distinction that only matters in code. In the world, the wall was the wall. The wall was where the math had said it would be. The wall was where Kurt had walked for 14 years to find it.
The wall is gone from Java. The wall is not gone from Bedrock. The wall is gone from the math, but the wall is not gone from the people who walked to find it.
The far lands were one of those places. The wall, when Kurt reached it, was just a wall, a face of stone in a plains biome at the edge of a number. The community, in the years since, has been quiet, writing things down, leaving small monuments, keeping the place alive in the only place it can still live in. And in the next episode is a different kind of place. The next episode is a player who was never there, in a world that was never broken, in a story that was never true. The next episode is Herobrine. He walked 14 years to reach the edge of a number. Some places in Minecraft only used to exist. If this episode helped you see your Minecraft world a little differently, subscribe. There's always